The day I found out my husband of 37 years, Carl, was leaving me for our son's ex-girlfriend. I was scrubbing the grease off his favorite cast-iron skillet, the one I'd used to cook his Sunday roasts since Jimmy Carter was president. At 62, I thought I'd seen it all. Raising our boy Tim alone half the time while Carl worked the oil rigs, nursing him through that knee surgery in '98, even forgiving him for that emotional affair with his secretary back in 2006. But this was a gut punch I never saw coming. Jenny, all of 28, with her peroxide blonde hair and that smug little smirk, had been Tim's high school sweetheart until she dumped him for a college quarterback 3 years ago. And now, here I was, staring at a Dear Jane letter on the kitchen counter. Carl's sloppy handwriting telling me he'd found real love with her, while I stood there in my faded apron, wondering how the hell my life turned into a bad Lifetime movie. So how did it come to this? Let me take you back to where it all started unraveling. Because, trust me, it's a story you won't believe unless you hear it all. Picture this. It's late October, leaves crunching underfoot, the air crisp with that Midwest chill that seeps into your bones. Carl and I had been married since '86, back when I was a wide-eyed 25-year-old cashier at Winn-Dixie, ringing up canned goods for $3 an hour, and he was a roughneck with a mullet, a chipped tooth, and a beat-up Chevy that coughed black smoke every time he hit the gas. We weren't fancy folks. 2 miscarriages hit us hard before Tim came along in '91, a squalling little bundle who gave me a reason to keep going. We scraped by on Carl's oil rig paychecks and my side hustles, sewing curtains for neighbors, babysitting when I could. I cooked his dinners, patched his jeans, held down the fort when he was gone for weeks on those rigs. I thought we'd earned our stripes, you know? The kind of couple who'd make it to the finish line, rocking chairs on the porch, swapping stories about the good old days over iced tea. But that fall, something shifted. Carl started rolling in late, way past the 6 p.m. dinners I'd keep warm under foil. Overtime, he'd mutter, kicking off his boots, but the pay stubs didn't match the hours. He'd shuffle into the kitchen, reeking of Old Spice splashed over something sweeter. Vanilla, maybe, like those tacky body sprays you smell on teenage girls at the mall. I'd catch him hunched over his phone at the table, thumbs tapping away, a goofy grin tugging at his lips. "Work stuff," he'd say when I asked, barely glancing up. I'd bite my tongue. 37 years of marriage teach you to pick your battles, but the hairs on my neck prickled. Something was off, and deep down, I knew it. Then came Thanksgiving, and the first crack in the dam broke wide open. Tim was over, shoveling mashed potatoes like he was still a linebacker in high school when he dropped her name out of nowhere. "You remember Jenny, Mom? My ex from senior year?" His voice had that bitter edge, the kind that lingers years after a heartbreak. I nodded, picturing her, peroxide blonde, all legs and attitude, the girl who dumped Tim for some hotshot quarterback and left him moping in his room for months. "Yeah, she's back in town," he said, stabbing his fork harder. "Saw her at the Shell station last week, filling up that stupid red convertible. Looked like she hadn't aged a day." Carl, sitting across from us, choked on his Bud Light, coughing so hard I had to pound his back. "You okay, hun?" I asked, but he waved me off, red-faced, muttering about going down the wrong pipe. I let it slide, stupid me, but that moment stuck with me, gnawing at the edges of my mind. The real storm hit 2 weeks later. I was down in the basement, knee-deep in laundry, when I fished a crumpled receipt out of Carl's work jeans. $87 at Rusty's Tavern, a dive bar 40 miles out of town, time-stamped 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. He told me he was fixing the truck with Ray that night. Ray, who hasn't touched a drop of liquor since his AA days in '92. My heart thudded against my ribs as I smoothed out that wrinkled paper, the ink smudged, but the truth screaming loud and clear. I shoved it in my pocket, hands shaking, and told myself I'd ask him later, calmly, like a rational wife. But then Tim called, and the whole damn house of cards came crashing down. "Mom, you there?" His voice crackled through the phone, tight with something I couldn't place. Anger, maybe, or shame. "Pete saw Dad at Rusty's last night, with Jenny, holding hands, laughing like they're on some damn date. Pete said she was all over him, kissing his cheek, playing with his hair. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want to believe it either." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the linoleum. I sank into a chair, staring at the faded floral wallpaper we'd hung together in '93, my mind spinning like a top. Carl and Jenny? The girl who'd ripped Tim's heart out and tossed it aside like trash? Carl's 64, gray hair sprouting from his ears, a belly that hangs over his belt, knees that creak louder than our old porch swing. Jenny's 28, barely legal to buy a bottle of wine. It was absurd, grotesque even. But the vanilla scent, the late nights, the texting, it all clicked into place like a puzzle I'd been too blind to solve. That night, I waited for him. He stumbled in at 10 p.m., whistling like he didn't have a care in the world, and I hit him with it. "What's this, Carl?" I said, slapping the receipt on the counter. "And don't lie, I know Ray doesn't drink." He froze, eyes darting like a cornered animal, then tried to play it cool. "It's nothing, Diane. Just grabbed a beer with some guys from work." But I wasn't letting it go, not this time. "With Jenny, you mean? Tim's Jenny? Pete saw you, Carl. Don't you dare bullshit me." His face went slack, then hard, and that's when he snapped. "Fine. Yeah, I've been seeing her. She gets me, Diane. She's alive. She's fun. Not some worn-out nag who's been griping at me for decades." Worn-out nag. Those words sliced through me like a rusty blade. 37 years, cooking his meals, raising our son, scrubbing his sweat-stained shirts. And that's what I was to him. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything. I just stood there, apron still tied around my waist, staring at this stranger I'd shared a bed with for half my life. "You're serious?" I whispered, voice trembling. "Her, Carl, our son's ex?" He grabbed a duffel from the hall closet and started stuffing clothes in, not even looking at me. "I'm done pretending, Diane. I deserve to be happy. Jenny makes me feel young again. You wouldn't understand." He stormed out, engine roaring as he peeled away, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt too big, too empty. The next morning, the Dear Jane letter showed up, left on the counter like a coward's goodbye. "I found real love with Jenny," it read. "Don't try to change my mind. I'm sorry it had to end like this." Sorry? He wasn't sorry. He was smug, like he'd pulled off some grand escape. Tim came over an hour later, fists clenched, eyes blazing. "He's a bastard, Mom. I can't believe he'd do this. To you. To me. Jenny, of all people. I'm done with him." We sat on the couch, his arm around me, and I cried until my throat burned. But inside, I was hollow, numbness creeping in where the pain should have been. How do you process your husband running off with a girl young enough to be his daughter? a girl who'd already hurt your kid once before. The weeks after that were a blur of humiliation. Word spread fast in our small town. Neighbors I'd swapped recipes with for decades started giving me pitying looks at the Piggly Wiggly. "Oh, Diane, how are you holding up?" They'd coo like I was some fragile widow. I'd force a smile, clutching my cart, while they whispered behind me, "Can you believe Carl?" And with her, Tim checked on me daily, bringing greasy burgers or old VHS tapes of us at his Little League games, trying to lift my spirits. But I saw the guilt in his eyes. He blamed himself for ever dating Jenny, for bringing her into our orbit. "I should have known she was trouble, Mom," he'd say, head in his hands. I'd hug him tight, tell him it wasn't his fault, but the truth? I was drowning. Nights stretched endless, me lying awake in our lumpy queen bed, replaying every fight, every quiet moment, wondering when Carl stopped seeing me as his wife and started seeing me as, what? A burden? A ghost? Then came the twist that flipped the script, and oh, it was a doozy. It was mid-January, snow piling up outside, when my phone rang. Ed Grayson, our family lawyer from way back, was on the line, his gravelly voice cutting through the static. "Diane, you sitting down? I've been digging through Carl's rig pension docs. Found something big." My heart skipped. "What are we talking about, Ed?" He laughed, low and dry. "Back in '95, when Carl botched the paperwork, you signed as primary beneficiary to lock in his retirement fund. $1.2 million, payable when he hits 65 next month. He thinks it's his, but legally, it's yours, Diane. All of it." I gripped the armrest, breath catching. "You're kidding me." "Nope," Ed said. "He's got no idea. Been too busy playing Romeo to check the fine print." I hung up, staring at the snowflakes swirling outside, and something ignited in me. A spark I hadn't felt in years. Here I was, broke, betrayed, picking up the pieces of a life Carl torched without a second thought, and I held the ace up my sleeve. $1.2 million. He'd built that nest egg on those rigs, sure, but I'd kept the home fires burning, literally and figuratively, for 37 years. I earned every dime of it, and he didn't even know it was mine to take. I called Tim that night, voice steady for the first time in months. "Son, we've got leverage. Your dad's about to learn what happens when you kick a good woman when she's down." Tim whooped over the phone. "Mom, you're a genius. Nail him to the wall." I didn't waste time. I met Ed the next day, divorce papers drawn up faster than you can say, "Cheating bastard." Infidelity? Check. Abandonment? Double check. I had the pension rights transferred into my name, quiet as a church mouse, while Carl was off playing house with Jenny in her cramped little apartment. I pictured them. Him sprawled on her futon, her painting her nails, both oblivious to the storm brewing. March 15th rolled around, Carl's 65th birthday, and I was ready. He showed up at the house that afternoon, pounding on the door like he owned the place. "Diane, open up! Where's my pension money? I know you messed with it." Jenny trailed behind him, arms crossed, chewing gum like a bored teenager. I stepped onto the porch, cool as ice, and handed him the divorce decree. Signed, sealed, delivered. "Happy birthday, Carl. You wanted a new life? You've got it. But that pension? It's mine. Legally, irrevocably mine. Maybe Jenny's got some cash stashed under her mattress to keep you afloat." His face turned beet red, veins bulging. "You conniving bitch! You can't do this!" Jenny piped up shrill and whiny. "This is illegal! We'll sue!" I laughed, first real laugh since he left, and leaned in close. Go ahead and try, sweetheart. I've got the law, the bank, and 37 years of receipts on my side. Enjoy your real love. Hope it pays the bills. Carl kicked the porch railing, spitting curses as he stormed off, Jenny screeching after him. I shut the door, locked it, and poured myself a glass of Merlot. Tim came over that night, grinning ear to ear, and we clinked glasses. To you, Mom, the toughest woman I know. I smiled, feeling the weight lift, just a little. But the real payback? That came slower, sweeter. I sold our old house, the one I'd painted, patched, and poured my soul into, and walked away with a fat check. Took that money, plus the pension, and bought myself a bungalow on Lake Michigan. White clapboard, big windows, a porch swing that creaks just right. Paid cash, no mortgage, no Carl. I started painting again. Watercolors of the lake, all blues and golds. Something I hadn't touched since my 20s. When Carl teased me, it was a waste of time. Joined a book club with gals my age, tough broads who'd survived their own wars, divorces, deadbeat kids, you name it. We'd sip coffee, swap stories, laugh until our sides hurt. Meanwhile, Carl and Jenny? Word trickled back through the grapevine. Rent late, her car towed, him hauling lumber at Home Depot for peanuts. Tim heard Jenny was already eyeing some new guy, a bartender this time, and Carl was drowning in cheap whiskey at Rusty's. I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good watching them sink while I soared, but it wasn't all roses. Some nights I'd sit on that swing, lake breeze rustling the trees, and the hurt would creep back. 37 years, half my life, gone like smoke. I'd wonder, was it my fault? Did I let myself go? Or had Carl always been a coward waiting for a sparkly exit? Then I'd shake it off, sip my coffee, and paint another sunrise. I wasn't Carl's wife anymore, wasn't just Tim's mom. I was Diane, whole and free, living for me. He thought he'd trade it up, but he lost the best damn thing he ever had. And me? I found out I didn't need him, or anyone, to shine. So here I am, 6 months into my new life, watching the sun set over the lake and wondering what's next. Carl's still out there, probably cursing my name, and Jenny's probably moved on to her next conquest. Tim's talking about proposing to his new girlfriend, a sweet girl who actually respects us, and I'm happy for him. But sometimes, late at night, I catch myself thinking, did I win this fight, or did I just survive it? Could Carl ever come crawling back, hat in hand, begging for forgiveness? And if he did, would I even open the door? I don't have the answers yet, and maybe I don't need to. What do you think? Should a woman like me ever look back? Or is this the part where I just keep walking forward, no regrets? I'd love to hear your take.